Even the greatest need to be pushed, challenged, and trained. So here's how New Orleans Saints safety Tyron Matthew got it done. We got all of that and a little bit of lanyap for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Saints, your daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much, as always, to all you everydayers out there making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget, you can always subscribe and follow, always for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, so you never miss the latest episodes. And if you want to keep the conversation going one-on-one with me, take part in our exclusive film studies, Q&As, early access, and much more, you can become a Locked On Saints insider by heading over to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSaints to join a community I would love for you to be a part of. As always, I'm your host, Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola on your favorite social media, your New Orleans Saints expert, credential member of the media. You can find me as the senior writer and reporter over at Saints News Network, Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation site covering the New Orleans Saints. You can also find me every Tuesday on the Locked On Saints podcast, or rather the Locked On NFL podcast, and here with you every single Monday through Friday on Locked On Saints. On today's episode of Locked On Saints, we are joined by Coach Nat of NXT Training, who does some incredible work with some athletes that you already know and love, including New Orleans Saints safety Tyrann Mathieu. What was it like working with Tyron Matthew when he returned to New Orleans? What makes Tyron Matthew as good as he is? And how does a guy like Coach Nat continue to train greatness? We got that coming up for you as we get to our parts 1 and 2 of that conversation. And then to wrap up the show today, I'm going to update you on everything you need to know about the New Orleans Saints salary cap. How much do they have? How do all those numbers break out? And how should they spend or use or save that money? We got all of that coming up for you on today's episode. And today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends over at birddogs. Head over to birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL or use the promo code LockedOnNFL to get a free water bottle with your order and with any purchase. You won't want to take your bird dogs off. We promise you that. Let's get started with our conversation here with Coach Nat. Starting with Tyron Matthew, what's it like to work with him, and what was it like with him getting back here to New Orleans?
Just the confidence in him, just seeing more how he's more into the defense and things like that. I see a lot of swagger, a lot of his swagger, Honey Badger swagger. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. And when you're working with a guy like Tyron, or really any of the long list of athletes that you work with, a lot of guys here from Louisiana, or at least with ties to Louisiana, what's some of the focus that you bring to try to help these guys take their game to the next level?
Well, it's mainly about development, you know what I mean? Helping them get faster, helping them get stronger, different parts of the game, the technique parts of the game, stuff like that. As in Tyron, he's a 10-year veteran, you know what I mean? And so there's some little nuances, the tips, we breaking down things that I've seen, because I'm 10 years older than him. I'm 40 years old, you know what I mean? So I've been watching this game while he was young, you know what I mean?
Hold up, wait, how are you 40 and look younger than me? I'm going to need to start working with you.
Yeah, come on out there, man. Come on, be right, man. Definitely that, man. Yes, sir. Yeah. So I make 41 in September, actually. Yeah. A couple weeks away. Yeah.
That's dope.
So like this, as a 10-year veteran, being able to come in and get better, as you seen last year, he had played the most games of his career. You know what I mean? Had the most tackles of his career. He finished first in pass coverage, amongst the safety position. You know what I'm saying? That's in the 10 years. So him being able to know what he needs to do and really locking in and dedicating himself and really working to take his career to that next step. You know what I mean? Add longevity to it.
Yeah. So when you're working with a guy like Ty, when you're working with maybe like a younger guy, right? And there's a bigger gap to try to cover to get to great, right? You're going from maybe, you might be going from like experience to great or something like that, right? Like there's a development level there. When you're working with a guy like Tyron, who's already in that conversation of the greats, how do you take that? How do you help make that next leap when you're working with a guy like that?
Well, like we always talk about, it's about being number one, the best ever. You know what I mean? It's not just this Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? Okay, so it's levels. Even once you get to the NFL, They got guys that's on the practice squad. They got guys that's on the bench. They got guys that start. And then they have those ones. You know what I mean? Those guys who are those guys. You know what I mean? So it's levels. They got guys who just get in the Hall of Fame. And then they, like I heard Charles Woodson say, that they need another room for those guys in that Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? So working with Tyron, getting him where he already has that mindset. So just matching that mindset of him working to be higher than number one. If that's the number, let's get higher than number one. Yeah.
Yeah. So you, as somebody who's got family that's got roots here, that came back to the city, you kind of got to see Tyron do that same thing, right? Tyron went away, moved around, played for a couple of different teams, came back to the city of New Orleans. What would you say was sort of your biggest kind of takeaway when it came to Tyron coming back home? Like, where was he? How excited was he with that opportunity?
Oh, he was really excited because he knows what he means to the city. You know what I mean? He knows the impact that he has to the youth. As you can see, he had a whole generation wearing a blind mohawk. You know what I'm saying? So,
listen, for real. Yeah, that's that
whole
part.
Generation, not just a city, a generation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They still rock. You know what I'm saying? So like that type of impact, you know. And so, you know, with his charities and stuff, giving back to wherever he is, he did that in Houston, did that in KC, and so now really being able to put his footstool in the city of New Orleans, you know, that's big for him. You know, a person like himself, that's huge for him. You know, for real.
Yeah. You mentioned kind of working on speed, working on technique, things like that. How do you with NXT drill down to those more kind of unique nuances to help a player out?
Well, I have a nursing background. I went to school for nursing before I got into the training field. So I know all the muscles in the body. So just really activating each individual muscle that needs to be activated to perform the sequences that we need to perform, you know, because one time you would think if you look at a person, every human being has weaknesses. So a lot of times if you just out there working on yourself, you'll probably just work on your strengths. You know what I mean? Because not all the time you know what the weak points are. You know, we go to the doctor because we need help. You see what I'm saying? So I look at the athletes, you know, I look at those, I bring them through an assessment. I look at where we're not as strong at, and we work on those weaknesses. I know exactly what needs to be activated. I know where we need to go. By me playing the sport, I played the positions. I played pretty much all the positions on the field at a high level. So I know the mindset. I know what needs to be done. I know the end result. So being able to help them get from where they are to that end result and putting that middle together, you know what I'm saying? That's the journey, the process of it. So building each individual muscle up so we have no weaknesses.
So when you're working with a safety in particular, because I imagine that the muscle groups that you work on kind of vary depending on position, right? Like a quarterback muscle group that you might focus on would be different from a safety muscle group. If I'm right about that, which I could be completely talking out my back end right now, but if I'm right about that, what's the focus when it comes to somebody that plays safety?
Well, with any person, not just an athlete, a human being, it's all about the foundation. So even if you think about a building, a house, it's standing on top of a foundation. So if that foundation is built on sand, any wind or rain, the top of the building is going to crumble. But if that foundation is bent on concrete cement, you're able to stack on whatever you need to stack on it and it to be sturdy. So just thinking about the human body, you're right. Safeties have to move. Well, they're not using their arms as much as quarterback, but safeties have to backpedal just like a quarterback has to backpedal. Safeties have to run just like a quarterback have to run and sprint. You know what I'm saying? Safeties have all these athletes, even in so football, baseball, basketball, soccer, these sports are, besides track, these sports are straight lines, 45-degree angles, 90-degree angles. So it's a game of angles, you know what I mean? So being able to move efficiently from point A to point B, that's the main thing. And a lot of times the athletes may have, not saying anyone I'm talking about, but a lot of times individuals may have a weakness, you know, in a foot, in an ankle, in a knee, in the hip, but like we say, the foundation, everything starts from the ground up. From your feet lead to your ankle leads to your knees lead to your hips lead to your back. So if something as low as the ankle is something, a problem is wrong, it's going to affect the knee above it. If something is wrong with the knee, it's going to affect that hip above it. You know what I'm saying? And so on and so forth. So being able to see that and see those misalignments and see where we're not moving efficiently at and constantly drilling it. Like I said, it takes 10,000 hours to master something. You know what I'm saying? So it's just that constant repetition over and over and over. You know, people say do it till you get it right. We say do it till you get it wrong. Do it till you can't get it wrong. I'm sorry, do it till you can't get it wrong. I apologize. Yeah. So like it's a habit. It's a habit forming at that. So like tying your shoe. It was hard when you tied your shoe at first. Now you can do it with your eyes closed. You see what I'm saying? That type of mindset, you know, so just that repetition over and over and over, doing it properly.
All right, family, coming up next, we're going to dive into some of the nitty gritty. What's it like to train some of these athletes? And why is it that what Coach Nat does is so successful? We're going to break that down as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. About to get nerdy up in here as part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Head over to birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL today or use the promo code LockedOnNFL. And I promise you, you're going to get exactly what it is that you're looking for when it comes to your athleisure wear. Whether you're looking for shorts that you could wear out as well as wear to the gym, or maybe you're just looking for workout shorts so you can get a nice run in. Maybe you're like me and you like the jogger options. They have everything that you're looking for, including like zip pockets for you to put your phone, your AirPods, whatever it is that you want to put away. You can have it safely tucked away in those zip up pockets with the invisible zip. They've got great sweat wicking fabric that make it super comfortable to wear. Even here in New Orleans, I wore the joggers and the shorts when it was triple digits outside, and I wear the joggers in the winter when it's a little bit colder as well. So really, really versatile stuff that keeps you nice and comfortable no matter what conditions you're working out in. So go and check them out today. Once again, that is birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL. And don't forget the promo code LockedOnNFL to get that free water bottle with your next purchase. Once again, that is birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL. Promo code LockedOnNFL. You won't want to take your bird dogs off. We promise you that. All right, family, continuing on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. We are here with Coach Nat of NXT Training, who does some incredible stuff in terms of working with athletes. You've seen some of the production that he's created with guys like Tyron Matthew, Jamar Chase, and others. And the thing that sort of makes what he does so unique is what we're going to break down here as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. Appreciate all you everydayers out there making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. So one of the things that's so unique about Coach Nat's approach is the fact that he actually utilizes motions and workouts that drill in what it is that a player is actually doing on the field. How does he develop that, and how does that have an impact? Here's Coach Nat and I breaking that down.
The one common factor in all those positions is speed. You got to be able to move from point A to point B. Right? You know what I'm saying? I not only, the difference between me and a lot of trainers around the world, I can do it all. The speed part, the strength part, the position specific part. I even throw the ball to them. You know what I'm saying? So we're moving efficiently in that area. So we doing the speed work, the change direction stuff, and things like that, all in one session, along with the position stuff. We sprinkle it in as they continue to build their capacity. So it's about getting their sprint mechanics, teaching them, making sure he's running properly, making sure he's not wasting any energy because the less tired you get, the longer you can go. You know what I'm saying? So if he's able to go 4 quarters, and if you go back to college, LSU and Texas A&M went 7 overtimes, and that's what we always see a lot of times. LSU and Texas A&M went 7 overtimes. So if you're able to play in all of those quarters, you're able to make a big impact in the game and able to make a good statistic for yourself. You know what I mean? If you're able to make them plays, you know what I'm saying? So just being able to be conditioned, having those muscles conditioned, being able to making sure we're running properly, efficiently, making sure we're breathing properly, making sure his core is strong, the things we do in the weight room, strengthening those hamstrings, those quadricep muscles, those calf muscles, making sure that, like you say, that core is strong, making sure those biceps are strong, those shoulders are strong to be able to swing those arms, neck, everything. It's a whole full body thing because, like you say, he's a high octane machine. And so to be able to, it's one thing, anybody can do it one time, but who can do it over and over and over again? That's what leads to the greatness, the consistency, the legendary type of thing.
You've done work with a lot of great players out there. How did you get into all of this, and where did it all stem from for you?
Well, like we talked about earlier, I was going after Hurricane Katrina. I came home helping the family and things like that, and just thinking about ways to make money, So I was thinking about the nursing field. I have an interest in the human body, and but when it came down to me taking the nursing exam, got all the way through. Time for me to take the nursing exam, my mindset was like, do I really want to be inside all day? I'm more of an outside person. I'm versatile, you know what I'm saying? Like you just talk about that, at least I'm a versatile individual. So mindset, just thinking about New Orleans, knowing the type of things that go on in New Orleans. You're from New Orleans, you see the crime and things that go on, and a lot of these kids and stuff, they're not bad individuals. They just need the proper guidance and the proper tutelage to show them how to take their talents to the next level, how to take their gifts to the next level. You know what I'm saying? And so if you think about Bill Gates, when he walked outside, he had his neighbors work for NASA and things like that. So if he wanted to ask them how to build a flux capacitor, they giving him all the information that he need. You know what I'm saying? So in these areas, we don't have too many people that know how to work a flux capacitor. So, so just thought about, I played football for Harrell Park, uptown Carrollton area. I played football for Harrell Park since I was 8 years old, from 8 to 13. So I was like, man, I could go back to my park and show these youth how to really get better. And because a lot of times in New Orleans, we didn't have that type of exposure to be able to put our talents on display. And even if we did have the exposure, we didn't have the type of teaching to be able to show it how other people were showing it. You see what I'm saying? Like they had trainers all over, in California and Florida, Texas, but here, a lot of us can't afford that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's really been the main thing of what I did. Like, so I said, I'm gonna go back and give to my park. I'm gonna build these kids up. They're gonna make it, and we're gonna give back and build the ones that come up. And so, like Irv Smith Jr., Jamar Chase. He was a junior in high school. Jamar Chase, Aaron Brule. They were sophomores going through their sophomore years in high school. This is 2015. Tyron, I knew Tyron. Tyron and my little brother went to high school together at St. Aug. And so we always knew each other. But last year was just the first year we ever worked. Out of all that time, we always talked about it, but it finally came into fruition. You know what I mean? Christian Foley, since he was at LSU, his first year at LSU. Perry Nickerson, he went to Tulane.
Former Tulane player,
you know what I mean? So like him, since he first got to Tulane, stuff like that, it's a lot more, man. A lot of kids in college.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man. So like those guys just kept coming back. You know what I'm saying? I see, because I was like that. I used to be at Harrell Park working on my craft by myself. You know what I mean? And shout out Coach Dave Johnson. He's at Florida State right now. He actually kind of sparked a bit of that in me, because the things he showed me. He was preparing Cortez Hankton, who's at LSU now, offensive coordinator, receiver coach, and Devin Lewis. He played receiver. He was getting ready for the Green Bay Packers and stuff like that. So I'm a kid in high school, 16 years old. I'm covering these guys, you know what I'm saying? And working on my game going into my senior year, you know what I mean? So that gave me confidence, you know what I'm saying? So just to think about that mindset, and then another inspiration, the Miami Hurricanes, how they used to come back and give to their youth, you know what I'm saying? And seeing that impact that made for their youth. So it was just like, well, we can do the same thing for our kids, you know? And so from 2005 to 2023, here we are, Biletnikoff, top 50
Look at
pick, top 60 pick, you know what I'm saying? Glory to God. It's all God work, humbly speaking. You know, those guys work hard, man. Those guys work really hard.
There you go. All right, family. One more big thank you to Coach Nat at NXT Training 7 on Twitter, at NXT Training over on Instagram as well. Appreciate all of y'all for checking out that conversation. I love having conversations like that about the nitty-gritty of how a player gets ready for the regular season. And the New Orleans Saints are ready for the regular season. It is officially week 1 here on Locked On Saints and here across the NFL. So look, coming up next, let's take a look at what kind of stuff the New Orleans Saints might be able to do over the course of the next month based on how much money they have available. What do they have available? How do those numbers break out? And how should they utilize that money? We got that coming up for you as we continue on and wrap up today's episode of Locked On Saints for the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and the official sportsbook partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's officially week 1. The New Orleans Saints are going to be taking on the Houston Texans. They're favored by 3 at home. You can get in on those odds or other things. Right now, you've got anytime touchdown scores and plus odds for Michael Thomas, for Chris Olave, and for Jamal Williams. Chris Olave at plus 145, Jamal Williams at plus 100. These are some pretty good odds. So you can jump in on that and much more over at FanDuel. And if it's your first time visiting FanDuel, you can just put $5 down, and no matter what, you're going to get $500 back in bonus bets guaranteed. You can then use that on player props, more point spreads, whatever it is that you're looking for. And if you're not a first-time customer, anytime you put down those $5, you're going to get $100 off of NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube or YouTube TV. All you have to do is head over to FanDuel.com/locked on. Put that $5 down for the first time, or if it's your next time, put down the $5 anyway. You're still going to get something back regardless when it comes to bonus bets, or of course that $100 discount on NFL Red Zone. So go and find them today. Once again, that is FanDuel.com/locked on. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. Wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Saints. Wrapping up with a look at the New Orleans Saints salary cap. How much money do they have? How should they spend it? That's what we're breaking down to wrap up today's show. Appreciate all you everydayers out there making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. So if you go and you take a look at all of the various places that are tracking, salary cap and cap space and all these other things, you're going to find 3 or 4 different numbers, but I'm going to tell you which one is, I believe, the most accurate, and why it's close to the projection that I have of where the New Orleans Saints are when it comes to their salary cap. So when it comes to the New Orleans Saints salary cap right now, it's not just the 53-man roster that counts against their cap, right? There's some dead money, of course, that, a lot of those talking heads nationally will have you, kind of be thinking about and talking about all those stuff. None of that matters. But they also have a couple of guys on injured reserve with some dead money, around $152,000 of dead money on Trey Turner's deal, for instance. And then, of course, you have the practice squad, where every veteran, all 6 of them, get a little bit over $360,000. And then all of the younger guys with 4 or fewer years of accrued NFL experience are right around $216,000. So you get 10 of those guys, you get 6 of the veterans. And then so that factors into the cap as well. And so this is where the number comes from. But here's the most accurate number that I've been able to find, which is right around roughly $5.7 million. Depending upon where you go, you might find something like $11 million. If you see something that's $10 million, it's because it's only capturing, first of all, if you're seeing $11 million, it's only capturing the top 51, which is no longer the rule now that you're into the regular season. Remember, on the 90-man roster, only the top 51 actually count against the salary cap. But then once the regular season begins, all 53 plus the practice squad all count against the salary cap, including, of course, those injured reserve players too. They get folded in, especially if they have dead money on their deal. So when you're really looking at this, what you're checking out is $11 million minus all of that practice squad and a little bit of that injured reserve money. That's how you get down to the $5.7 million you can find on places like Over the Cap, as well as my own personal tracking. I'm sure other tracking from around Saints media as well. So that's where the Saints sit. They're no longer in the $14 million, 13, 11, 10 million. They're no longer in the double digits, but they still have a considerable amount of cap space left for this time in the season, $5.7 million. Now, is it comparable to teams like the Cleveland Browns, who are still sitting with $26 million on their books? No, but that's okay. Listen to the top 5 teams that have the most salary cap available. In order: the Browns, the Cardinals, the Bengals, the Panthers, and the Bears. Outside of the Bengals there, who are a notedly frivolous organization, not great company to be in, to be going into the season. If you're the Browns, Cardinals, Panthers, and Bears, oh my, with a ton of salary cap and unspent money that maybe could have made your team a little bit better, right? So when you're going into the season, you probably want to be right around where the Saints are. Listen to some of the teams that are right around them: the Jaguars, the Steelers, the Packers themselves, of course, the Chargers, the Patriots, the Eagles, the Dolphins. That's all kind of within $1 million up or below. You think it's some of the places where they're spending the most money, though, that are technically in the negative right now, or can be said to be in the negative right now: the Bills, the 49ers, the Ravens, the Bucks are in there, and the Raiders are in there, but also the Chiefs. So spend your money. Spend your money. That's what's going to make your team the best. So what should the New Orleans Saints do with their money right now? Well, they've got sort of this nice little package deal right now to where they can kind of sit around and wait. Package deal, not package deal, but they have sort of this nice situation that they're in at the moment where they can kind of sit around and wait and see how, other veterans become available, or veterans that haven't yet signed with teams that are looking for a place to land. They could still get in on some of those guys, things like that. You've got enough money to sit back comfortably, especially after week 1, to potentially look to bring in some more talent. And why do you wait until after week 1? Well, one of the big reasons that you do that is because contracts are no longer guaranteed after week 1. So even if you sign a guy to a vet minimum deal, Instead of guaranteeing them just over $1 million, you're giving them game checks by when they play effectively. So you're saying, okay, here's a $1.16 million contract or whatever it might be. But you're not guaranteed that money. You get that in parts of 16 or 17 over the course of the next 17 weeks, including the bye week. And so that's what the Saints can do with this money. The other thing that they can do, and that I would not blame them for doing, like I said, you have to spend the money, right? You hear the names of some of the teams toward the bottom that have spent the most money over the course of this offseason. They're good teams. And the teams right around where the New Orleans Saints are, they're good teams. The Chargers, the Eagles, the Dolphins, so on and so forth. Spend your money. That's how you get talent on your roster. You can't sit there with a talentless roster and say, oh, well, too bad we didn't have the money. You got it. Go spend it. And so if you're the New Orleans Saints, I would say go spend it. But it doesn't mean you have to spend it right now. You can wait on this, and you can save this money for the trade deadline. And let's say that you're a team like the New Orleans Saints that's looking to compete within your division, and you've got a nice little, lead, a 1-2 game lead on the division, but want to be a little bit better and feel like you're one piece away from doing that. You might be able to identify that piece in a team that's struggling at the bottom of their division 7-8 games into the year and say, okay, let's call them up and see if we can get that one missing piece from their roster onto ours, and then make ourselves a little bit better and set themselves up for a playoff run toward the end of the season. So that's the way that they can go about how the utilization of that money. They could spend it now and then kind of wait until post week 1, do the non-guaranteed contract deal, or hang on to it, wait and see if there's anybody available at the trade deadline that takes you that next extra step up. The last option, which I could go here or there on, is that you carry it in the next season. Remember, whatever amount of money you don't spend this offseason will roll into next season. But you hear me here. I'm all about going out and spending the money. So if you can find a constructive way to do it, then do that. If you can't spend it, or you don't have the right reason to spend it, or you try to, but a team doesn't want to trade a player away, whatever, or you pursue a player and that player signs elsewhere, you can't spend the money just because you want to spend the money. That's not the same thing. You have to spend the money on something that's going to make a big difference for you, some player that's going to make a big difference for you. If you can't find that, or if you can't make that happen, then you hold on to the money and then you roll it into next season, where the Saints are already $52 million over the salary cap, which is like light work. Light work for Mickey Loomis and Kai Harley. Small potatoes. Nothing to really be worried about there. That's better than 75. That's better than 60. That's better than $100 million, $110 million that they were over a couple of years ago. Small potatoes. Ain't worried about that at all. But you know me. I'm all about spending that money. And maybe that is a personal flaw of my own. All right, coming up in tomorrow morning's episode, we're going to get you all set up with everything you need to know, sort of identifying and introducing to you the Tennessee Titans. Who are they? What to watch out for? How do the New Orleans Saints match up? We'll start to build that case, and then we'll start getting into our post-practice live shows, post-practice fill-ins, all that. You'd also catch me on the WWL TV 6:30 p.m. Central Time, Channel 4 here locally in New Orleans. Sports special at 6:30 local time. That'll be a ton of fun. Myself, Doug Mouton, Ricardo Lecomte, getting you ready for the New Orleans Saints 2023 home opener, season opener, all that against the Tennessee Titans. So make sure you check that out and much more here on the Locked On Saints podcast and with our partners over at WWL. Appreciate you, as always, for making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day, every day, to all you everydayers out there. I really, really appreciate you. Big shout out to both Byron as well as Alonzo for coming through and saying hi when you see me. And you know I always ask you to do that. So it was a very, very, very big pleasure of mine to be able to meet y'all. Thank you very much, as always, everybody, for making Locked On Saints part of your day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me and the show. As always, if you see me, say hi. And if you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. How you living. Let me know how you momming them. And trust me, that nation, I'll holla at you.